Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast brought to you by our friends over at Brier Greaves. Protecting your assets starts with a company you can count on. So whether it's auto, homeowners, flood, boaters, or business insurance, Brier Greaves Insurance are the best people to work with. So visit BrierGreavesInsurance.com or give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. It is a Tuesday edition of the show. We are getting that much closer to the 2025 NFL draft. So we'll talk about the latest Bucs draft scoop, some rumors, some players maybe you're interested in the Bucs drafting. We'll entertain questions, comments, super chats, and all that fun stuff, and talk about who the Bucs might be drafting on Thursday and Friday and Saturday. So should be a fun one this afternoon. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com, SR, Scott Reynolds. Scott, how we doing? You excited for the Lightning tonight? Game one?
I am.
As well. Yes, I noticed the shirt.
Got the Bolts shirt on. Yeah, I'm excited about that. Not excited about the Lightning playoff schedule, though. Like, I understand one of these draft nights was going to be game 2, right? And it's going to be Thursday, and I get that. But game 3 at 1 o'clock on Saturday?
May have to bring 2 TVs.
Yeah, I mean, why couldn't they have just made that like the night game? That would have been great. You come home from a long 3-day draft excursion, a draft odyssey, and you get to watch the Bolts play with the beer in hand on the couch. That would have been nice, but no. The game's going to be going on at the same time as draft show number 3. So, yes, we will have 2 TVs, and we'll make it happen. We'll make it work. So, go Bolts.
Yeah, very excited. NHL playoffs, some of the best time of the year. But we're here to talk about football.
That's
and
right.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course. The draft is coming up, round 1 on Thursday. The Bucs are picking at 19 at the moment. We shall see whether they stay put. There's been talks about them wanting to go back, but it takes 2 to tango.
It does, yeah.
When it comes to that. So the Bucs are in an interesting spot. Yes, they want to move back. There are a number of targets that they could go after if they are still picking at 19.
Right.
But also, will those players be available? What does Jason Licht's big board look like at the moment? None of us know. And as Jason Licht typically is, a little silent around this time because he doesn't want to give away anything that could mess up their draft plans, because the draft plans have been pretty good over the last couple of years, Scott.
Yeah, what they've been doing has worked, and they got to continue to do that, because I really think, and I did a Pewter Pulse video on this, and I've got one coming out for tomorrow, but did a Pewter Pulse video on how I thought the Bucs were one draft away from really being not just Super Bowl contenders, but really, I don't want to say Super Bowl favorites, but Super Bowl worthy. Not like a dark horse, but not a favorite, kind of somewhere in between, like they belong in the conversation. And what that means is finding about 2 or 3 players. I don't know what's going to be for this year, Matt, because they just don't have a lot of holes, right? They don't have that many starting jobs up for grabs per se, where, you could plug in a Bucky Irving at running back. You could plug in a Tyke Smith at nickel. You had a need for a number 3 wide receiver. That was Jalen McMillan. Now the wide receiver that they draft will probably, max out at wide receiver 4 during his rookie year. So to me, that's I look at this as, if they can come away with 2 or 3 impact players, I think that would be sufficient for this team to really get even closer to becoming a legit Super Bowl contender.
It's funny because you look at last year's draft, and you expect, when you draft someone like Graham Barton with their first round pick, you expect him to be an impact player. And he certainly was, starting at center from the get-go. But then you had a big surprise with Bucky Irving, that 4th round pick, who Trevor Sikkema said, I love Bucky Irving, and he ended up going to the Buccaneers, which was great to see that. And we all know the fantastic season that Bucky Irving had. This year, and that was a major surprise in terms of the production, first 1,000-yard runner in a decade. This year, though, it does, because I completely agree with your point. Like, yes, there are holes to fill on defense, but it's like edge rusher. Well, they kind of already addressed that with Hassan Reddick. Inside linebacker, in theory, on paper, you have Servassier Dennis and Levante David. And if you're fully healthy, that's a solid group. We still got to learn a little bit more about Servassier Dennis. So really, the only thing you legitimately have to fill right away is either nickel or safety, depending on what they do with
That's
Tykees.
right.
So in theory, on paper, you're kind of just looking to fill one spot. So I say all of this to go and then say that it's going to take a true surprise for someone to be an impact player this year specifically.
Yeah.
Like, do draft, say, Matthew Golden in the first round. If they decide to go that route, I'm not saying that they are.
Right.
But, like, what's the big surprise? He takes over Jalen McMillan for wide receiver 3.
Yeah.
And the driver's seat to be wide receiver 2. Mike Evans isn't playing.
Yeah.
Another year or two, and Chris Godwin bumps up to number 1. That would be a true surprise.
Indeed.
They go with Donovan Ezeraku. That wouldn't be that surprising. We've talked about him a lot.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe he dips into the playing time of Yaya Diaby or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
That would be a true surprise. A true, oh my goodness, this guy is hitting it from the get-go. And we've been spoiled here in Tampa Bay because you had Tristan Wirfs and
That's right.
Antoine Winfield Jr., who were spectacular when they were rookies. Then you had Bucky last year, the impact that Tyke Smith had, and of course, Graham Barton that I'm talking about.
Yep.
This year, it's going to take a lot for one of these draft picks to be an impact player instantly. Now, they could be an impact player next year and 2 seasons from now and on and on and on. But this year, it's about plugging certain spots, and I think Jason Light will. I'm not going to say it's going to be underwhelming
right
draft class, but we've seen exciting offensive linemen play. Imagine like a skill player in the first or second round to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, and this is not going to be like 2021 where they re-signed everybody from the Super Bowl team and they drafted Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who actually played more than they expected him to play. Remember, Jason Pierre-Paul hurt that shoulder early in the season, first or second game. Then you had Kyle Trask. They just drafted a backup quarterback in the second round, right? And then Robert Hainsey in the third round. He barely played at all because they had all their starting offensive line back as well. So it's not going to be like 2021 where these guys just aren't going to see the field. I think they are, but it's not going to be like last year where you had 4 impact guys coming out of that draft and finding starting jobs, essentially, when you include Jalen McMillan as a starting wide receiver in their 11 personnel grouping. So I think 2 or 3 guys with more coming down the road, right?
Yes.
Levante David is not going to play forever. They're going to draft a linebacker this year. That linebacker, they're hoping will eventually replace Levante. It's not going to be this year, but maybe next year. And you rotate him with Servassier Dennis, or maybe, just maybe, you cut back on old man Levante's playing time a little bit. You do the snap counts, Matt. He's always up there like around 100%.
He's 100%, or he got injured and missed like a couple of snaps.
Exactly,
that's the only time he's not 100%.
Right. So, hey, maybe dial him back to 85%, right? Maybe give a series to a rookie who comes in, especially like in garbage time situations. You don't want to have a situation like last year where you got Antoine Winfield Jr. playing the second of the last play of the Commanders game in week 1, and he has a foot injury that kicks him out for 4 games. So there's going to be a couple of players that are going to be drafted with an eye towards the future, not just the present in this year. So fans got to, they've got to set their expectations a little bit. I think this can be a very good, promising draft class, but it may not have the splash and the instant impact in terms of the volume of guys that will see the field this year.
And I think that plays a little bit into, and no disrespect to everybody entering the draft this year, but it plays a little bit into the overall talent pool of this year's draft class compared to last year's draft class. It's not like there's terrible players out there, but there's a big reason why Jason Light went up to the podium a couple of weeks ago when he did his pre-draft press conference here in Tampa and said, we feel like we can find a starter in round 4 the same way that we can in round 2.
Yeah.
I mean, that's essentially saying...
That's right.
There's not that big of a drop-off between a second rounder and a fourth rounder. And again, I will continue to reiterate until the cows come home. Jason Light shows his true value when finding these day 2 players and these early day 3 players. I don't think every GM in the league has that eye for middle round talent the way that Jason Light does. I mean, there's example after example. And last year, you could name everybody that we've already talked about as the perfect example. So, yeah, there might not be that splash player right away, but I don't know. I'm willing to bet on Jason Light finding top-tier talent in round 3 than, several other teams out there. It's just based on the track record. And I understand some people might worry about, I saw in the comments before about worrying about, doing what he did in 2021 where, it was a little bit of a less than desired draft coming off of the Super Bowl. But they're not coming off of a Super Bowl this year.
Right.
They're coming off of a team, as Jason said at the Combine, is ascending.
Yeah.
And they're not there yet. And if their Super Bowl window is legitimately open, well, you got to hit this one again. And he's hit the draft better than several other GMs in recent years. But that doesn't mean that he can just stop now, because you're almost there.
Yeah.
You want to keep going forward. You don't want to take a step back based on a poor draft class. So
I
this
agree.
is really a meat and potatoes type of draft this year.
I agree. And I think, too, you look at his two bad drafts, right? 2016, right? The Vernon Hargraves, Noah Spence, Roberto Aguayo, right? That was a horrible draft.
Yeah.
And he's changed a lot of things from a methodology standpoint after that draft class. And then 2021 comes around, and that's just such a different animal, Matt. You go from picking Vernon Hargraves inside the top 10 back in 2016 to you're coming off of a Super Bowl season. You've re-signed every single one of your starters. They're back. And now you're picking 32, right? Jason Light has picked number 1, and he's picked number 32. It's a lot easier to pick number 1 or inside the top 10 because you have a better chance of getting the guy that you want. At 32, you just have to let the draft come to you the entire first round and then see what's left and what you can do. And keep in mind, too, this was still during COVID, right? If you remember, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, because COVID happened in 2020, that affected the 2021 draft class. Now, they were still at one Buccaneer place. It wasn't like Jason was doing the draft, with his kids screaming in the background. What happened in 2020, it worked out pretty well. Tristan Wirfs and Antoine Winfield Jr. But keep in mind, like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, their first round pick, he was playing out in the Pac-12 at the time when Washington was in the Pac-12. And remember, the Pac-12 was like, oh, we're canceling the season. It's COVID. We're not doing it. And then the SEC was like, COVID, screw COVID, man. We're playing football.
Yeah.
That's what we do down here in the South. We're playing football, and that's what happened. I mean, they played, I think, the whole season that year. And then, like, after a couple games, Washington was like, or the Pac-12 was like, okay, well, let's just play a 4-game season, right? And by that time, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka was like, I'm not playing. Like, I'm getting ready for the draft. I'm not going to come back and play for 4 games. So the tape they had to look at for guys like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka was 2019.
Yeah.
Didn't even play in 2020. So I'm not giving Jason Light a pass for that. But that was a different animal that year. That was a different draft with different circumstances and all of that. So I think that he's learned from that too. So I would be shocked if Jason has another kind of what I call wipeout drafts. The 2021 draft was not as bad as the 2016 draft. That was a wipeout. That was terrible. But he might miss on some picks. But I don't think he's going to have a wipeout draft again. In other words, he might miss on the first rounder, but he might come through the second, third, and the fourth rounder. He might nail the first rounder and whiff on the second, but he'll rebound with the third and the fourth. And I think that's the lesson he's learned from all this. And the last thing I'll say on this, Matt, is this helps. Continuity.
Yes.
It helps. Jason Light knows what Todd Bowles wants. He knows what a Todd Bowles cornerback is, what a Todd Bowles safety looks like, what a Todd Bowles edge rusher should be, what a Todd Bowles defensive tackle and linebacker are, and then he knows the offense too. And it certainly helps to have the same offensive system in place, even though there's a different trigger man calling the plays with Josh Grizzard as offensive coordinator. But continuity helps. And I think that's a big reason why this team has been able to nail their draft picks. And one of the teams that can continually drafts well, Baltimore Ravens.
Yes.
Right? Same system on offense and defense. Their coordinators will change. The system stays the same. Harbaugh's been a constant there. And that's the key to successful drafting, continuity.
It absolutely is. The Bucs have a big advantage there. The goal is always to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
No duh. It's always to win the Super Bowl. But the next best thing you could really ask for is to consistently be in the mix season after season after season. And that's what the Baltimore Ravens have been. Sure, they tripped up from time to time. They haven't won a Super Bowl yet with Lamar Jackson, but they are always in the mix, consistently getting to that second round, playing for AFC championships and stuff like that. And the Bucs, as we know, they are the longest tenured playoff team from the NFC to make it every single year. Now, they haven't won the Super Bowl since 2020, but they are in the right direction. And you know what? Jason Light's not going to hit on every single pick,
Right.
but you can say that about every single general manager in the NFL. So,
That's right.
you can't get mad at Jason Light for Chris Braswell when he's also bringing you Bucky and Tyke and Graham Barden and everybody else that we talked about. I was looking at that, some of the recent draft classes. The 2021, the daunting one. Yeah, JTS didn't work out. Kyle Trask was re-signed. Robert Hainsey's probably going to go down as the best draft pick in that 2021 class. 2-year starter, solid backup last year, gets that contract with the Jaguars. There's also Jalen Darden, KJ Britt, Chris Wilcox. Grant Stewart ended up being a good special teams player. But fine, if you want to get in his case for that, 2022, Logan Hall, so-so, but then you go Luke Gedeke, Rashad White, Cade Otton, 3 in a row right there, and then Zion McCollum in the 5th round. And Cole Keith, still on this team as a 6th-round pick.
That's right.
And then 2023, Kalijah Kancey, Cody Mauch, Yaya Diaby, Servassier Dennis. So that's 3 impact players right away. Servassier very much could be another impact player. Payne Durham, 2nd-string tight end. Jose Ramirez, a 6th-round pick, still on this team. Josh Hayes, Trey Palmer. We'll see what happens to them this year. And then obviously last year draft class, we talked about that a lot. So for anything you want to get mad about in 2021, I would argue 2022, 2023, and 2024 draft classes, I'd much rather deal with the positive that came from Jason Light's draft picks than have to worry about the one negative year.
I agree. I totally agree. We have a super chat to get to. Let's get to that. That's from Trucker Brian.
Yes. Thank you, Trucker Brian, for this $5 super chat. Good question. What do you guys see, who do you guys see having the high ceiling? Ezeraku or Oladejo?
The higher ceiling, well, like in terms of growth, if you're looking for who's going to maybe grow more and become a better player at the next level, I mean, to me, that's going to be Oladejo, just because he's got more growing room. He's got a much more of a growth path in terms of how much better he can be. I'm really high on the kid. I think he showed at the Senior Bowl that he had 2 sacks in the Senior Bowl game, and that's coming off of like a really hot week where he was really making a strong impression. I mean, the arrow is pointing up on this guy. If he would have skipped the Senior Bowl, Matt, I think you're looking at a day 3 guy. Yeah, and he has shot himself up to probably day 2. I'm sorry, round 2 in day 2. He is he will wow you with his character, with his leadership ability, with his energy. When you interview him, you want him on your team, and I'm sure every single team has that type of feeling when they come away after talking to this guy. I love Femi Oladejo. I love his handle on Twitter, Femi Go Crazy. It's just cool. And there's a lot to like there. The thing is, he is not an instant impact guy. He had 4.5 sacks. He started 10 games, not even a full season at UCLA. So how quickly can he get to being a double-digit sack guy if he can get there, which I think he can. I think he's got the motor, the want to, the drive, the athleticism. But the thing is, he's more like Yaya Diaby than he is Donovan Ezeraku. And I think with Ezeraku, the benefit there is you're getting a guy that has a lot of polish to his game. And that, to me, is exciting because you're going to get more instant impact there. And I think with Donovan Ezeraku, what you see is what you get. You're going to get a guy that is very toolsy. He's got a tremendous amount of moves and counters already developed. He was a 3-year starter at Boston College. He played against some really good guys in college, and you look at the sacks and who he got him against: Missouri in the SEC, Michigan State in the Big Ten, the ACC against teams like Clemson, right? Here's a sack against SMU, bowl teams. Mm-hmm. And so that, to me, shows me he can do it against top FBS competition. And then the production is there, not just over 1 year, whereas Mike Green's a little bit of a 1-year wonder. Ezeraku had 7.5 sacks as a sophomore. Then the numbers dipped down, and he admitted he had to refocus and become a better player. And he slingshotted back up to his senior year. I mean, 23 tackles for loss, 16 and a half sacks, 3 forced fumbles. To me, if I'm making the pick and you're saying which guy would you rather have on the team, I would say Ezeraku, just because I've got a better feeling about what I'm going to get. But if this team wants to go in a different direction at cornerback, or let's say Ezeraku's not there, and I wind up with Oladejo in round 2 or 3, I'm not crying about it, Matt.
For sure. Two very good options. In a weird way, I almost kind of like that Ezeraku had that struggle 2 seasons ago, at least from a production standpoint, because it shows that not everything was just easy to him.
Yes.
And, like, he actually had to deal with a little bit of on-field adversity, not getting his way, things not always working out how he would want it to. So the fact that he's able to bounce back last season with not just a great season, an absolute monster of a season, I think is really exciting, and it will help at this level too, in case he doesn't hit it off right away, like many rookies do in their first season in the NFL, just because it's the toughest league in the history of sports and football. Obviously, specifically, it's the highest level of football. So with Ezeraku and Oladejo, they play the same position, but it's two very different situations overall. Because Ezeraku's already more of a finished product, or more polished, I guess I should say, with all of the different pass rushing moves, 3-year starter, where Oladejo is still kind of just getting his feet wet, really, in terms of experience. So you still favor Ezeraku, and that's why he's a first-round pick, because, I mean, if he goes to any team, really, he's probably going to get reps right away, where Oladejo, there's still going to be a lot of, like, figuring out his game and just trying to get into a rotation, let alone like legitimate snaps on the defensive side. So Ezeraku, I still think his ceiling can overall be higher, because it's okay. He's already got a good base. He's already got a good foundation. Then what will coaches do to mold him a little bit more in one way or another? How quickly does he pick up the mind games that come with going up against an offensive tackle? Those are things you can really only learn. You can learn it with film, but in my opinion, the best way to learn it is by repetition. By going up against Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gedeke every single day. And Ezeraku's going to have a little bit more of that advantage than Oladejo. But we see from time and time again that 3rd-round picks, 4th-round picks can turn into, fantastic pass rushers. I mean, you look at Shaq Barrett, wasn't even drafted.
That's right. And you mentioned Shaq, and it's like, I like having contrasting styles at edge rusher. Like, I grew up in Kansas City. And, you had Derek Thomas, who was that speed, bendy, agile guy. And then you had Neil Smith on the other side, who was more like a Yaya Diaby type of power rusher and all of that. And that's kind of what they had with JPP and Shaq Barrett. And I think having a better contrast would be Donovan Ezeraku and Yaya Diaby for the long haul. Whereas I think Oladejo is more like a Chris Braswell type, maybe more like a Diaby type, more of a power guy with a little bit, maybe you want more finesse in his game than he has. So that's why I would prefer Ezeraku over Oladejo.
That's right. And Chris Braswell is a big part of this entire equation. Because if he can have a 2nd-round jump or a 2nd season jump, the way that, I know it's apples to oranges, but like the way that Luke Gedeke, really figured it out in year 2 and can just be an impact rotational player, well, that takes a lot of pressure off of whatever edge rusher they decide to draft this year. It lets Yaya Diaby get a breather here and there. And same with Hassan Reddick, who's, a little bit older compared to the rest of the outside linebacker room. If Chris Braswell can develop, well, then the Bucs are in a really sweet spot at the outside linebacker position. However, if he doesn't develop and he ends up being, a bust in terms of a 2nd-round pick, the Bucs will at least have other answers and they won't be doomed at the position. But then you kind of have to game plan for that as well, where Chris Braswell is essentially your 4th player on the depth chart, or maybe even 5th if we see what happens with some of these other edge rushers that have been here for quite a while. But Chris Braswell, I think, is going to be a big factor this season in one way or another. Either the Bucs will have that Eagles type of rotation of you can just bring guys in and out if they do go with Ezeraku or maybe another edge rusher, or it's going to be, please, Yaya and Hassan Reddick, get to the quarterback, because we don't have any other answers. Of course, Anthony Nelson in the mix as well. But let's get to the super chat from Paul Bowen. Thank you very much, Paul, for this $4.99. Says, with how much perceived value in the middle rounds, are the Bucs possibly thinking wide receiver like Matthew Golden or Ted McMillan at 19.
It's no secret that they like Matthew Golden, right? I mean, they
Mhm.
brought him in for a 30 visit. They had a formal interview with him at the combine. So there is that. They do like the guy, and that's not like smoke. I think that's legit interest in him as a wide receiver, and he's a starting caliber guy. I watched him quite a bit last year, and he's a dude. I mean, he's got speed. He can pull away. He plays bigger than his size, and I think that's something you've said before, Matt, and I agree with. He'll go make those kind of circus acrobatic catches where he kind of floats through the air a little bit. You know, I'm stealing your verbiage here, but well said. And then he's, that's Maxwell Hairston. I mean, he's shoving him to the ground. I mean, he's got some strength. He's kind of a well put together 5'11", 194-pound guy. So he's probably 10 pounds lighter than Chris Godwin and 2 inches shorter. But the 4.29 speed is real. It's legit. And he tracks the ball exceptionally well. There's a lot to like there. I don't think that's a smokescreen. There is some merit to what Todd Bowles said. He does believe, since he's the defensive play caller, that he can do things on the field to help keep points down. Like, for example, I mean, and yes, the Bucs defense completely underwhelmed against the Washington Commanders. Mm-hmm. At the same time, the Commanders only scored 23 points, and granted, the Bucs scored 20, but that was scoring 23 points with a last-second field goal and not even punting during the game. So right. when you actually look at it, it was awful. Keep that in mind. Awful, but also remarkable at the same time that they didn't score more points than that. Matt, if you had told me before that Commanders game, hey, the Bucs are not going to be able to force a single punt, and they're not going to have any turnovers, how many points are they going to give up? I've been like, holy crap, 40 points, maybe, right? But I think that's the thing is Todd Bowles said, you can never have enough points. Right. And the Bucs offense, as good as it was, it underwhelmed a little bit last year too in that playoff game. And they didn't have Godwin, but they had Evans, they had McMillan and all that. So could they take a wide receiver in the first round? They could. I don't know that is what they're targeting. I don't know that they're going into the draft saying, we're going to get Matthew Golden if he's there. Maybe they are. I don't know. Like you said, I'm not privy to Jason Light's draft board or whatever. Tetero McMillan, that's another guy. He's probably going to be a top 10, top 12 pick. If he falls there, that might be a bit of a game changer. He's perceived as the number one wide receiver in this draft class, has some shades of Mike Evans to him, 6'4", 215 pounds, just big X split end type guy that is fluid, that has some speed, that put up a lot of touchdowns at Arizona. So if either one of those guys is the pick, I'm not going to be surprised because of the remarks that Todd Bowles, Jason Light have made about the validity of, hey, help this offense get better, more explosive, score more points. There's nothing wrong with that.
Man, part of me thinks, what would we be saying about this team if there wasn't that early snap on that third down late in the game where the Bucs couldn't convert on 3rd and 1 after not converting on a 2nd and 1? What we're saying about the Bucs, if they were able to get to that second round against Detroit and whatever happened from there. I think I'm all for points and everything like that. I would love if the Bucs specifically had Matthew Golden. I'm all for Ted McMillan as well. My gut tells me McMillan will probably be gone by the 15th pick.
Yeah.
The latest. And also the confusion of Jalen McMillan and Ted. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Having the same McMillan.
J-Mac and T-Mac.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I can only see Golden there on this team if every edge rusher they like with the first round value is off the board, if every cornerback that they like with the first round value is off the board, same at safety.
Or I think you're right. Or if hardly any of the cornerbacks have been taken, where maybe they slide down into the 30s, and if Jason Light really wants one, you can trade up and get one. So I would throw that out there.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point there. Or, of course, if Jihad Campbell, whatever goes on with that situation, if he's not available either. That's really only where I see a wide receiver going to the
Yep.
Bucs in the first round specifically. I definitely want them to address wide receiver in this year's draft. It just kind of depends. Depends how the board breaks, but Jason Light will be the first one to tell you.
That's right.
We got another super chat.
Yep.
There we are. Mark Fisher. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
For the $4.99 super chat, who says, defensive back seems will help us most. It also seems that no one thinks Hassan Reddick will be there more than 1 year, correct? Hope you had the greatest Easter. Thank you very much, Mark. Hope you had a fantastic Easter as well.
Yeah. Whether it's a guy like Maxwell Hairston, right, in the first round, Trey Amos is another guy, maybe first or second. Same with Savon Revel Jr. Those are some guys that we believe the Buccaneers are really high on. When it comes to Reddick, it's interesting because if you look at some of those edge rushers that the Bucs have had really good success with, right? Simeon Rice, Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett, right? Those guys all helped Tampa Bay win a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And by the time they were 32, 33 years old, they were done. Like the wheels fell off the wagon. These were double-digit sack guys until all of a sudden their game just fell off a cliff. Simeon Rice hurt his shoulder, was never the same. JPP hurt his shoulder, never the same. Shaq Barrett blew out his Achilles, was never the same. Something happens with most edge rushers, and you got a couple freaks like Khalil Mack who still gets the job done, etc. But by and large, those guys, especially speed rushers, guys that use speed, like Hassan Reddick, he's undersized, 6'1", 243 pounds or so. It gets a little dicey because he'll be 31 this year during the season. Mm-hmm. If you re-sign him for another year, then he will be 32 next year. How much are you going to sign him for? You can use the franchise tag. You did that with Shaq Barrett, right?
Right.
Is that going to piss off somebody like Hassan Reddick who wants one more long-term contract extension? Are you wasting your franchise tag on a guy that might hold out then? Because we saw what happened in New York with the Jets. If he has a blow-up year and they draft Donovan Nezaraku or someone like that who might be ready to go, they might just say, hey, go get your money elsewhere. We'll take the third-round compensatory pick the next year, and we'll roll with what we have. Or it might be a situation where, like, hey, we want you back. We got so close. Let's run it back one more year and do this. And I know you want a 2 or 3 year deal. They tried that with Shaq Barrett, and it came back to bite him, right, Matt? So I don't have a clear answer on that. I don't know that it's a slam dunk that Reddick's only here up for 1 year. He is, if he's not that guy anymore. If he turns in a 4-sack season, he won't be back. But if he blows up, I don't know, Matt. What do you think?
So we've seen the pattern with the Bucs. Like, one, you have to go and earn it if you want that second contract with this team specifically. Like Evans had to do it. Godwin had to do it. A lot of other guys had to do it. For Hassan Reddick, and this may sound a little outrageous, but we've seen the pattern of, again, like what happened with Shaq, the way that they don't want to allocate too much money long-term to kind of older guys. That's why Levante's been on 1 year deals and things of that nature. Mike's deal wasn't for that long years-wise. Even Chris Godwin's deal is not insanely long when you look at some of these other contracts. This may sound outrageous, but unless Hassan Reddick has like a 15-sack season this year, I just don't foresee the Bucs being even willing to go to the table with Hassan Reddick and being like, hey, why don't we do a 3-year deal worth X amount? Yeah. However, if Reddick does have, let's just say, a double-digit sack season, maybe not necessarily 15, but a double-digit sack season, I think Hassan Reddick at some point has to stop looking at his own game with some rose-colored glasses and realize he has not gotten the big deal with any team.
That's right.
Really, like he's bounced around for a reason.
That's
even
right.
With the Eagles, when he had monster seasons.
Yeah.
He's going to have to meet the Bucs in the middle a little bit. And this is all hypothetical, of course. But he's going to have to meet the Bucs or any team, I think, in the middle for a little bit if he wants a nice payday for several seasons. I can't see the Bucs going more than 3 years based on any kind of production he does this season. But that would be the one area where I think maybe he could be back. Because if it's a good double-digit year, the Bucs say, all right, we will play ball to this amount, and we'll give you 3 years, but you're not going to get much more than that. And based on your history with contracts, you're not going to get that from anybody else either. So that's really the only situation I see him coming back.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Easy the Great with a $2 super chat says, Scatterbo and Mayfield in the same huddle? Yes.
Oh, man. Love me some Cam Scatterbo, man. He is such a fun player to watch. I was rooting hard for Arizona State in that game against Texas. Man, this guy, he's like a little mini Mike Allstott, you know, and he's thick, but I mean, Mike Allstott's 6 foot and 240 pounds back in the day. And I saw Mike on the Bucs cruise. You did too. He still looked like he could play, man. He is still rocked up and jacked up and all of that. Scatterbo is about 219. So he's about 20 pounds lighter and about 3 inches shorter. But he has got that same kind of determined, creative running style. It's a little reckless at times. He's a little bit like a bowling ball, but that's kind of how the A-Train was, right? So I like him. He throws the ball. He can catch the ball. There's a lot he can do. I'm a big Cam Scatterbo fan. He ran wild over my Kansas State Wildcats this past year and gave us the L that we deserved in Manhattan. And I wanted him and Arizona State to beat Texas so bad in that playoff game. That was a real heartbreaker. Went to overtime. Matthew Golden actually saved Texas this season with a touchdown catch on 4th and 13 from Quinn Ewers. So fun player. I mean, you talk about like a fan favorite. I know Bucky Irving's already kind of achieved that status, right? But I mean, it's like
that'd be a great little rivalry between the fans there if Scatterbo comes to Tampa Bay. And every running back runs with effort, but the willingness and determination that he has, it's not like watching Saquon run or even Bucky or somebody like that, but he finds a way to get it done in a very blue collar, gritty type of way. And because he is very helpful in the passing game, it does make it more intriguing for the Bucs. And wouldn't it be kind of ironic if they went with an Arizona State running back who then replaced a current Arizona State running back in Rashad White? I'm not pushing Rashad out the door.
We'll talk about that report in a second because somebody brought that up in the chat. We'll get to that in a second. But listen, folks, we're not having a show tomorrow. You know that because we have to rest our voices because we've got 3 days worth of PR Live draft show coming at you. That's right. Day 1 starts April 24th. There's Matthew Golden. Look at him. At 7 p.m., every single draft show that we do this week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, will be 1 hour prior to the start of the draft. So the draft starts at 8 on Thursday. We will kick off at 7. The draft starts at 7 on Friday. We will kick off at 6. The draft starts on day 3, the final day, on Saturday at noon, and we will kick off our show at 11 a.m. You can watch that streamed live on YouTube, on Pewter Report TV, on our Facebook and X channels at Pewter Report, as well as pewterreport.com. And we'll find out which guys Jason Light and Todd Bowles are going to snare and bring down to Tampa. That's going to be a fun draft show. It always is. We've got lining up a couple guests. We do have Trevor Sikkema, who will be on our show on Tuesday. So that's next Tuesday, analyzing the Bucs draft class. Remember, he was super excited about Bucky Irving last year, a player that he loved. And so we're going to get Trevor's thoughts on Tuesday's show. We had a great turnout last night. Myself, Josh Capo, had the final Bucs mock draft show. So if you have not checked out our Bucs mock draft, do so. It's on pewterreport.com, where you can watch the show or listen to it. The podcast is up on Pewter Report TV. Just over an hour's worth of conversation. We broke down and analyzed all of our draft picks for our final mock draft. And it was a fun time for everybody. So make sure you check that out as well. Again, no show tomorrow. We are prepping for our big-time draft show, live 3-day extravaganza, live from One Buccaneer Place 2, which will be cool. So there is that. Another thing that's cool, the folks over at Brier Greaves Insurance. There's a lot of things that you can get from Brier Greaves. It's all insurance, though, but there's a lot of different categories. Auto, and not just for your car, but how about for like your RV, or your antique vehicle. Yep, they can insure those as well. They offer multiple carriers. I have Travelers. Maybe you want Geico. Homeowners. I've got my homeowners as well as my auto policies through Brier Greaves Insurance. If you live in a flood zone, you need flood insurance. Homeowners does not cover flooding. So if you live in a flood zone in Florida, make sure you have that policy too. Otherwise, you could be screwed because a lot of Floridians don't know that if it floods in your house, if you don't have flood insurance, homeowners is not going to cover it. Boaters, this is the place to turn to, Brier Greaves Insurance. And if you have a business, you can also get business insurance through Brier Greaves. What I love about Brier Greaves is the personal touch because they're a local, family-owned, Tampa-based business. The late, great Mark Cook told me about them, and I became a Brier Greaves customer years ago. Protecting your assets starts with a company you can count on. Work with an independent agency you can trust. The best part about them, when you want to shop your policy around to get the best price or the best value, let them do the legwork. Save yourself a bunch of time. They're going to give you the best rates from the different carriers that offer up insurance in the state of Florida and advise you on which policy is right for you. So do what I did. Give Brier Greaves a call, 813-876-4166, or visit them on the web at briergreavesinsurance.com. That's Brier, B-R-I-E-R, Greaves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S, insurance.com. You want to save some money, don't you? Give Brier Greaves a call and find out if you're overspending and overpaying for homeowners and auto insurance.
A comment from Supply and Demand is what we were about to talk about as well. Adam Schefter said Rashad White could be traded during the draft. I think Tom Brady gets him.
That's interesting, right? Because there's been some talk that John Spytek, who was very fond of Jonathan Taylor. Remember that conversation we had way back in the day?
I immediately thought of that. Thought about that when there's talks about the Raiders and Genty, of course, the very talented Boise State running back.
And there's a chance that the Raiders take Genty, right? And if they don't, or even if they do, if you look at the Las Vegas Raiders backfield, it starts with Raheem Mostert, right, who had all of 278 yards and 2 touchdowns last year and averaged 3.3 yards per carry. So, like, that's their bell count? No. Sincere McCormick, 183 yards last year? No, he's not the guy either. What about Zamir White, the former Georgia Bulldog running back? Well, he had 183 yards and a touchdown last year. See where I'm going, Matt?
Yes.
This is not the Bucs backfield that has 3 starting caliber running backs. Then you have Dylan Laub, who was the pass-catching running back out of New Hampshire, more of that third down, like kind of poor man's Austin Eckler type. So, yeah, even if you get an Ashton Genty, as we know, this is a 2-back league. There could be some value with Tom Brady, with John Spytek, maybe calling up Jason Light and saying, what do you want for Rashad White? You got Bucky now. You got Sean Tucker. What could we possibly get for Rashad White?
So on Thursday's show, I was very adamant that Rashad White is not getting traded. And,
either.
I will have to stand by that. But, if he gets traded, I will eat crow. Well, not literally eat crow, but I will put my hand up and say I was wrong on our draft show if he gets traded.
Yeah.
It makes sense from the Raiders standpoint. It totally does. John Spytek has the familiarity and all of that stuff. I understand Jason Light loves acquiring draft picks, and they don't have their 6th-round pick. He loves doubling up on rounds. We saw that in the 3rd round with Tyke and or Jalen McMillan, Tyke, or whichever way it was. I think it was Tyke and then Jalen. But I just don't. Unless they have a running back that they love in this year's draft class, I still just don't get it from the aspect of Bucky is tremendous as a runner.
Yeah.
But I still think he's unproven as a pass blocker.
I agree.
Really a route runner, because a lot of the passes he were getting were screens, and he's fantastic. Right. I am not belittling what Bucky Irving means to this team and what he did last season. But as far as like legitimate route runner and pass blocker, nobody's better on this team than Rashad White. Sean Tucker, everybody will point to the game against the Saints where you deservedly won NFC Offensive Player of the Week. He did all of his damage in the 4th quarter running the football. Yes, he did catch a pass for a touchdown. That was a little slant into the end zone. They must really believe that Sean Tucker can be a 3rd down pass blocking back as well, because they already have 2 great runners You need that third down guy, though. It's a
Yeah.
passing league, and you can't disguise it in different ways unless they go with Scatabo and they put him on third down.
Yep.
But it's tough to trust that with a rookie running back. So I get it. It's a contract year for Rashad White. I'm still just truthfully trying to see where the answer is for losing Rashad White
Yeah.
if you are going to trade him and get draft picks instead.
He's a weapon. I mean, he is. Catches the ball exceptionally well. I mean, he can remember the Raiders game. Bucky Irving wasn't right in terms of his hip and all that. Didn't play hardly at all, and Rashad played really well. Q's 44. I'm not surprised that you're pimping your guy, LaQuint Allen. I like him a lot. I'm late on him. I'll tell you this. I'm late on him, but you talk about a really productive guy. I don't have a picture of him, but he's a good dude when it comes to his ability to run and catch the ball. I'm pulling up his stats right here from last year at Syracuse. He had 1,021 yards, a 4.5 yard average, a nose for the end zone, though, 16 touchdowns. But he had 64 catches for 521 yards and 4 more touchdowns, averaging 8.1 yards per catch. So you want a back that can do it all and do both things. Like, this is your guy. I mean, he had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He was essentially the guy that replaced Sean Tucker for Syracuse. And it doesn't really bring much in terms of special teams value. Had a handful of punt returns and a couple of kick returns. But yeah, as a player that probably will go undrafted, I would be all in favor of bringing in another Syracuse running back, because this guy, I think, is I like his game. He's got some good game to him.
I'm all for the Bucs adding another running back, because you are going to have answers next season if Rashad White is not back with this team, and they have to find an answer for that. But I think there's a world where you can hold on to Rashad White for this year and then still, develop another running back, even if that running back's Sean Tucker. Like, there's still development that needs to be done for Sean Tucker. Because remember last year, there was talks about Sean Tucker not even making this team.
Yeah.
And then he did, and he thrived in that game against the Saints. But, the storyline can shift at any moment with really any player. And I think Sean Tucker is a good example, but he still needs to develop if they want to, bring in somebody else. Well, they got to develop that player too for the, I don't want to say inevitable loss of Rashad White, but it feels like we're kind of getting that way, especially with how great Bucky Irving was as a rookie. That's right. Last season.
Pewter 941 says, who's our best second round pick? Levante David, Chris Godwin, or Antoine Winfield Jr.? That was kind of the conversation we were talking about in terms of Jason Light's best day 2 picks, right? So obviously Jason didn't draft Levante David, but that was kind of a fun topic that I think we nailed today. All of us came up with some really good answers there. And that included 3rd round picks too. But who's the best 2nd round pick? Whew, man, this is tough, right? I think it's Levante just because of the longevity. I think he has Hall of Fame. He has a Hall of Fame argument to make. I don't know that he's getting in the Hall of Fame, but I think you could say that he is a Hall of Fame caliber player. 2nd best linebacker behind only Derek Brooks, just like Chris Godwin's the 2nd best wide receiver behind only Mike Evans. That's not bad company to keep, right?
Right.
I would give Levante David, just because he's done it longer, I give him the edge. I think it's in that order. It's Levante David, it's Chris Godwin, and then it's Antoine Winfield Jr. As it stands right now.
Yeah, I would agree. David's certainly number 1. Godwin's certainly number 2 right now. But the jury, I still think, is out on Antoine Winfield Jr. He's still young in his career, won the Super Bowl his first year. His All-Pro season in 2023 was sensational. Now, last year, the injuries, derailed him a pretty good amount. But he already has 1 All-Pro under his belt. He also he made the Pro Bowl in 2021, but did not make the Pro Bowl in his 2023 year. So there's a little bit of the overlooked thing that's been the case for Levante David his entire career. But when it's all said and done, Winfield may go down as the best safety in team history. Now, he's got to have another, all-pro kind of year, and we see what type of success the overall team has. But Winfield, I think, eventually could be a Hall of Famer too if he keeps up his similar career trajectory and gets back to what he was doing, in 2021, 22, and 23, and can avoid injury like he did last year.
Yep, I totally agree.
We have a $20 super
Mike
chat
Wells,
from
thank
Mike
you.
Wells. Thank you so much. Who says, awesome show so far, Scott and Matt. Based on everything, it seems like Starks, Campbell, and Azaraku are the top three guys. We're looking at 19, and also love that Noel Williams was back in the mock draft. Feel he is very underrated.
Yeah, I kind of have a feeling about Noah Williams. I have a feeling about him like I had a feeling about Tyke Smith last year. I
Mm.
just feel like he's a Buccaneer corner. And just it reminds me a little bit of Donnie Abraham, Dwight Smith, a little bit, just the ball skills. So I would be thrilled if they got Noah Williams this year in the middle rounds, probably round 3, maybe 4, depending on where the corners go and other positions, et cetera. Yeah, and I think those three guys, Starks, I don't see Jihad Campbell going to the Buccaneers. I could be absolutely wrong, and if I am, I'll be happy to admit it. Just kind of a gut feeling I've had. We have not had Jihad Campbell in any of our mock drafts. He's not our Bucs best bet at linebacker. We're going in a different direction. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's the pick at number 19, and everybody, can say I suck at doing Bucs best bets, which I don't think is the case.
That's not.
I don't get them all right, but just doesn't feel like what's happening with the shoulder and what they have other needs that I think are more pressing than inside linebacker right now. So I don't know. I think there's Starks could be an outside sleeper. I think Matthew Golden is a legit possible target in the first round. If you're looking for more of a wild card, Ezeraku is a guy that we obviously like, and if he's not there, maybe it's Mikael Williams out of Georgia. That might be the fallback guy. They had him in for a 30 visit. These Georgia guys, they have modest sack numbers at Georgia, and they go elsewhere, and they seem to do pretty well. So maybe he's the next one.
Yeah, it seems like Starks and Ezeraku you can kind of pencil in if they are available at 19. Campbell, it's so tough. Same with Savon Revel too, in terms of coming off of an injury. I mean, there's been shows where we just kind of act like he's going to fully recover and will be completely fine. Revel I'm talking about, but he could drop as well. So I don't know. Campbell is not even just with the Bucs, just the entire draft is one of the more fascinating kind of storylines of what will happen with him specifically, based on, do teams take a chance on that injury, or how far will he really drop because of it?
Yeah. There's an interesting comment here from Brian Hess. Jason Light bumping California Love day 3 and grabbing Noel Williams round 4, Teddy Buchanan, that's the linebacker, round 5, and Craig Woodson, the other DB, on round 7. Give us all the Cal guys on day 3. I don't know. That would be something. Yeah. He would have to switch his allegiance from Washington to Cal.
That's right.
Because he certainly loves the Washington Huskies, but we'll see. They didn't bring in Teddy Buchanan for a 30 visit. They didn't interview him at the combine. They did do a Zoom call with him, we found out. So there's some level of interest. I like him. Josh Capo likes him. We just don't know if the Bucs really like him or not, but I think he's a good player.
Yeah, I mean, I think the linebacker room, it's not like the best in the history of the draft class, but I think there is some later round talent. Like you talked about Nick Martin on a recent show.
Yeah.
Like there is some talent to be found. It's just whether you can mold that into, an everyday starter.
Yeah. Nathan Elliott says, replacing Levante. Remember that Logan Hall's in a contract year and may need to be replaced. The defensive tackle position can have a big instant and future impact if the right guy gets drafted. That's a really good point, Nathan. Yeah. And it's funny because I'm doing some prep work for our draft show on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And when you look at the defensive tackles that they brought in, or they have had some type of contact with, this is not including the local pro day. But let me kind of break this down for you here. The names in Pewter, those were the players that have come in for an official 30 visit that we know. We were able to identify through media reports 19 out of the 30. So there's 11 names we don't know. Maybe there's 3 or 4 more defensive tackles that we just aren't aware of. That could be. But Darius Alexander, his name is capitalized because he came in for a 30 visit and he also had a formal interview at the combine. Those other three guys in red, those are combine formal interviews. The guys in black those are guys that they interviewed informally at the combine. That's not a lot of names. That's not a lot. Yeah. When you look at the number of cornerbacks, for example, okay, that's the cornerback list. We're not going to go through all the names, but that's the cornerback list, right? And they even have more safeties than they do defensive tackles. Okay, so they just haven't spent the time and the resources. Now, they could draft Darius Alexander in the first or second round. They could draft Omar Norman Lott or Shamar Turner in the second round. But to me, they just haven't really put a lot of time and resources into defensive tackles. It seems to me, Matt, that because this is a deep defensive tackle draft class, that they may be content on getting a defensive tackle on day 3, maybe a 5th rounder, right? That they had a 4th round grade on, or maybe a 7th round pick, like we had Tonka Hemingway in our 7th round in the mock. Right. They might have a 5th round pick on, but because there's a glut of defensive tackles, not enough teams are going to need one. So it's just going to push a lot of the talent at that position down. Maybe that's what the Bucs are wanting to play. That
For
kind
sure.
of waiting game.
And also, you can't address every future issue like in the draft. When I say future issue, I just mean like a guy that is part of your group, part of your rotation, the way that Logan Hall is, but could be leaving after the season based on the contract situation or that their contract is coming up. You can only address so much, and I do think some of these other positions are a little bit more important for the priority standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, because we all know it's all about Vita Vea and Kalijah Cansey.
Yeah.
The Bucs could look at a defensive tackle next year and be like, okay, he'll be our 3rd rotation guy, or, whatever the case may be. We have another super chat from Mike Wells. Thank you for the $5. Who says, I got one more for you guys. Do you think
we can stay here all night, Mike?
Exactly.
We can stay here all night.
We'll answer whatever you have on the mind. Do you think Light will prioritize getting a slot corner and an outside corner and double dip?
Yes. And like last year, we did guard and center previews for our Bucs Best Bets and for our positional previews. We flexed with that because we knew that they would probably draft a center and a guard. And what they do, they drafted a center, Graham Barton, and they drafted Elijah Klein, who nobody heard of at the time, including us. They drafted both of those positions because they're two distinct different positions, right? And we thought Graham Barton would be the Bucs' best bet at guard, but they opted to move him back to center where he played as a freshman, and it worked out pretty well. I think he's got a very bright future in Tampa Bay. Yes. Having said that, there are some years where the Bucs don't have a need at cornerback, right? When they had Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean as their starters and big money contracts and all that, and they're still playing well, where we would do like one cornerback preview. This year, we decided to split up 2 distinct cornerback previews. One's a nickelback and one's the outside corner, because in Todd Bowles' defense, those are 2 completely different positions, 2 completely different body types. Like Jamel Dean looks nothing like Christian Izien. Tyke Smith looks nothing like Zion McCollum, right? You're talking about guys that are 6'1", 6'2", versus guys like Tyke Smith, who's 5'10", and Christian Izien, who's like 5'8", 5'9". And you look at all of the nickels that Todd Bowles has had since he took over this defense in 2019. The only guy that was 6 foot or taller was Sean Murphy-Bunting. And he started off as an outside corner.
That he did. And
then Jamel Dean beat him, and he moved inside. But then everybody else, Antoine Winfield Jr., Christian Izien, Tyke Smith, those guys are shorter, squattier nickels. So that's what we did this year. We split that preview up. Josh did a great job of identifying that. And you're going to have some guys that might be able to do both. Noah Williams, 6 foot, might be able to be a Sean Murphy-Bunting type. Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky might be a Sean Murphy-Bunting type, where he can play outside because he's got enough speed. He's tall enough, long enough, but also not too tall to play inside.
Right.
And if that's more the immediate need, where, hey, we want you to shore up the nickel spot because that's kind of vacant, then maybe that's where the nickel corner goes, and then they draft another corner either early or late to compete with Jamel Dean to play outside.
Yeah, there's no doubt they have to address corner, even if that player doesn't start right away. And I think they have to address it within their first 4 picks. I don't think they can go another Zion type of route, even though that worked perfectly. And nickel's probably the one spot where they don't have an answer, again, depending on what they do with Tyke Smith. So I could see like a hybrid safety nickel and then just a natural corner as well. I still wouldn't be shocked if they doubled up on inside linebacker too, given that everybody else in that room besides Gervais Dennis is on a 1-year deal. So
agreed.
I think they will double up at a position, and it's either going to be defensive back or inside linebacker.
Yeah, I'm with you, Matt. I think that's absolutely correct. Folks, if you haven't seen, the weather outside has been fantastic. And, we're coming off the Masters here, and so maybe you got your golf buzz going. Well, the place to go if you have yet to play Heritage Isles Golf and Country Club is Heritage Isles Golf and Country Club. It's up here in the new Tampa area, right off Bruce B. Downs, ranked in the top 3 best value course in Tampa, St. Petersburg by Golf Advisor. So it's not going to cost you a fortune. It's a fantastic, picturesque golf course. You can become a member, but you don't have to be a member. It's open to the public as well. For tee times, give them a call at 813-907-7447 or visit them on the web, Heritage Isles Golf and Country Club. You got a great website. You can get your tee times reserved. The weather is still beautiful at night if you want some sundown golf, or in the morning, and it's not too hot in the middle of the day just yet. So make sure you book your time for Heritage Isles Golf and Country Club. But if you haven't played it yet, make this weekend, after the draft, of course, the weekend to do it.
That's right. And remember, everybody, our next show will be Pewter Report's live draft show. Our first day/night of the show is on Thursday, starting at 7 p.m. You could find it on our YouTube channel. You could find it on our website, all of our social media. We'll cover round 1, give our live reactions to every pick, and specifically the Bucs. Then we'll do it again for day 2 and also for day 3 on Saturday. So it's one of the most exciting times of the year in the football world. The Bucs will be picking at 19. Maybe they trade back, but a lot of fun content coming your way this week.
I got a very important announcement to make, because we do have to give our Pewter Platinum members their props. Scott Federico, Rachel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Hezo813, Ash Fishpool, Joel Elrican, Sam, John Dale Morris, Zap Brannigan, RP89, Eric McMillan, Connor For Reals, Zach Jarvis, Kevin Thomas, and Mario Thomas. We will have a Pewter Insider on Friday for you. Time to be determined, because there probably will be a Bucs press conference at some point. It might be an abbreviated show. It might be Matt and I doing it.
Live from the Bucs building.
Live from the Bucs building, exactly. But we'll have that show. We didn't have one for you last Friday because it was Good Friday. We took Easter weekend off, but we'll have that for you as well. We want to thank all of our Pewter Platinum and Premier and Pro and Pewter People members. If you want to find out how you can help support our efforts at pewterreport.com, you can do so. It's the best way you can do it to support us. You can also become an advertiser if you want. But I'm just talking about the channel members tonight. And you can hit the join button on Pewter Report TV, our YouTube channel, and it will have all of the different price points, all the different rewards and perks, as well as the monthly membership investments, and find the one that suits your budget the best. And we greatly appreciate the support. And we thank you all for helping us get over 18,000 last month. We're on the way to 19,000. So please, if you have not subscribed to Pewter Report TV, hit the subscribe button. It's free.
Yes.
And make sure you hit
everybody for your support.
Go ahead.
Hit the like button, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And if you're not already doing so, follow us on our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment on this video too, who you want the Bucs to draft this year, with round 1 coming up on Thursday. I was going to say next, no show tomorrow because we're celebrating Scott's birthday. So happy early birthday!
I'm still working
to you, Scott.
There's no podcast. Thank you very much.
But yeah, until then,
thank you, Chris.
The early birthday boy, Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera, saying thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you soon for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out. Pewter Game Day Show coming up. Not Game Day Show, Pewter Draft Show coming
Yeah.
up.